Everyone's obsessed with NVIDIA's latest GPU, but here's the number nobody's talking about. China's cross-border digital currency platform just processed over $55 billion in transactions. The de-dollarization narrative just got a massive, tangible data point.
55 billion? That's not a pilot project anymore. That's a serious alternative financial rail. And welcome back to Asia Tech Macro. I'm Maya, looking at the world from the perspective of a founder who wants faster, cheaper settlements. And with me is Alex, a former hedge fund analyst who still views every currency movement through the lens of US dollar hegemony.
Old habits die hard, Maya. But seriously, the data from the People's Bank of China, or e-CNY, is staggering. As of late January 2026, the cumulative transaction volume on their cross-border platform, mBridge, has surged to over $55.5 billion. That's a 2,500-fold increase since the early pilots in 2022.
I saw a report from the Atlantic Council highlighting this. They mentioned that the e-CNY now accounts for over 95% of the settlement volume on mBridge. This isn't just about China. It's about creating a parallel system for trade with the Middle East and Southeast Asia that completely bypasses SWIFT.
Exactly. And here's what most people miss. It's not just about avoiding sanctions. It's about efficiency. They're cutting settlement times from days to seconds and slashing costs. If you're a commodities trader in Dubai selling oil to Shanghai, why would you want to deal with the friction and fees of the dollar system if you can settle instantly in e-CNY?
That reminds me of what happened with Alipay and WeChat Pay domestically in China a decade ago. They didn't just replace cash. They built a better, faster system that everyone adopted because it was simply more convenient. Now they're applying that same playbook to international trade. But Alex, devil's advocate here, isn't $55 billion still a drop in the bucket compared to the trillions that flow through SWIFT every day?
It is today, but the trend line is exponential. I saw a note from an analyst at the Observer Research Foundation suggesting that as China integrates the e-CNY deeper into its trade networks, especially for energy and commodities, we could see a significant shift in certain corridors. The question for our listeners is, at what point does this alternative rail become the primary rail for non-Western trade?
That is the trillion-dollar question, Alex. If I'm a CFO of a multinational operating in Asia, I'm starting to think I need a digital wallet strategy, not just a bank account strategy. But while China is rewiring the money, India is trying to rewire the hardware. Let's talk about Tata Electronics.
Ah, yes, the Gujarat fab. I was reading a report this morning that Tata Electronics, in partnership with Taiwan's PSMC, is on track to start commercial production of 28-nanometer chips by late 2026 or early 2027. This is India's first commercial semiconductor fab, and the scale is massive.
It's a $10 billion bet. I saw Prime Minister Modi speaking at the Semicon India conference recently, basically declaring that India will become a trusted partner in the global supply chain. But Alex, let's be real. 28 nanometer is not exactly cutting-edge AI chips. NVIDIA is moving to 2 nanometer. Is India just building yesterday's technology?
That's a common misconception. Sure, they aren't building H100s yet, but 28 nanometer is the workhorse of the industry. It's what goes into your car, your power management systems, your IoT devices. I saw a note from a tech analyst at Counterpoint Research suggesting that the global shortage in 2021 was driven by legacy nodes, not bleeding-edge ones. India is targeting the highest volume, most stable part of the market.
So it's a Toyota strategy rather than a Ferrari strategy. That makes sense. Plus, with the China Plus One shift, companies are desperate for a non-Chinese source for these foundational chips. I read that Tesla's already in talks with Tata for sourcing power electronics for her next-gen affordable EV.
Exactly, it's strategic autonomy. But the challenge is execution. Building a fab is notoriously difficult. Just look at the delays TSMC faced in Arizona. Can Tata and PSMC actually pull this off on schedule in Gujarat? The infrastructure, the water, the talent, it's a massive logistical puzzle.
Speaking of execution and massive shifts, we have to look at Southeast Asia's auto market. It's a bloodbath out there. BYD and other Chinese EV makers are absolutely crushing the incumbents.
Crushing is an understatement. I saw the sales data for Thailand and Indonesia for January 2026. Chinese brands now hold over 80% of the EV market share in Thailand. And Toyota, which used to dominate these roads like a king, is seeing its total market share erode month by month.
I was reading a piece in the Nikkei Asia about this. They interviewed a Grab driver in Bangkok who switched from a Corolla to a BYD Atto 3. His reasoning was simple. Fuel costs dropped by 70% and the maintenance is negligible. The Japanese automakers are trying to catch up with hybrids, but the price gap is just too wide.
It's a classic disruption curve. I saw a forecast from a Nomura auto analyst suggesting that by 2030, Chinese OEMs could capture 50% of the total passenger vehicle market in ASEAN. That is an existential threat to Japan's auto industry, which relies heavily on Southeast Asia for profits.
So for our listeners in Tokyo or Nagoya, this is a wake-up call. The fortress ASEAN is being breached. But Alex, is there a risk of a backlash? Could we see tariffs or protectionist measures like we're seeing in Europe?
That's the wild card. But right now, countries like Thailand and Indonesia are courting Chinese investment for local battery production. They want the jobs.
So it's a manufacturing for market access deal. That makes it much harder to implement tariffs later. It feels like the Japanese automakers are playing chess while the Chinese players are playing speed chess.
Speed chess with limitless government subsidies. It's a tough game to win. And that brings us perfectly to our contrarian corner.
All right, Alex, what is the consensus truth that you are ready to dismantle today?
The consensus is that de-globalization leads to higher inflation. We hear it everywhere. Larry Fink, the central bankers, they all say that fragmenting supply chains will permanently raise prices.
And you think it won't?
I think that in Asia, it's actually creating hyper-competition deflation. Look at what's happening with EVs in Southeast Asia or solar panels globally. The China Plus One strategy isn't just duplicating supply chains, it's creating massive overcapacity. When you have Vietnam, India, and China all fighting to be the world's factory for the same mid-tier goods, prices collapse.
Wait, that is a fascinating take. So instead of inefficiency raising prices, you're saying state-sponsored overcapacity crashes prices.
Exactly. We are entering a world of subsidized abundance for hardware. Great for consumers in Jakarta or Manila, terrible for profit margins in Tokyo or Detroit. The contrarian bet for 2026 is that goods inflation in Asia will underscore, not overshoot central bank targets.
Subsidized abundance. I like that phrase. It's scary for companies, but great for my wallet. Okay, let's wrap this up with the action items. What should our listeners actually do on Monday morning?
Action item 1. If you have exposure to Southeast Asian auto markets, hedge your Japanese auto stocks. The market share erosion in Thailand and Indonesia is faster than the market is pricing in. Look at local battery supply chain players instead.
Action item 2. Watch the mBridge volumes. If your company does significant trade with China or the Middle East, start setting up e-CNY accounts or at least talk to your bank about their capabilities. The transaction cost savings are real and your competitors will use them.
And action item 3. Keep an eye on Tata Electronics hiring in Gujarat. If they start poaching senior engineers from Taiwan or the US in large numbers, it's a bullish signal that the fab is on track. That's the real leading indicator for India's chip ambitions.
Great insights today, Alex. We covered the digital yuan surge, India's chip gamble, and the EV war in ASEAN.
It's never a dull moment in this region. Next week, we're looking at Japan's tourism boom and why the experience economy is the only thing saving regional Japan.
I'll bring the data, you bring the skepticism.
Deal. Thanks for listening to Asia Tech Macro. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave us a review.
Stay data-driven. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.